Hi guys. So I have a dream that I had on March 9th, 2022. And, I've just been reserved not to tell it until now. So it's a dream about Vladimir Putin. And it's kind of awkward to tell this dream because I'm not in my, today's self. I am in another person's experience. And this dream is a little different. So before I tell it, I just want to remind everyone that the Lord's a gentleman and there was nothing racy, nothing off color, even though it seems like it might be going that direction. There's nothing like that in this dream, okay? So, in the dream, I awakened on my right side and there was a maid entering the room where I was sleeping, and she had a tray of a silver coffee pot and a few covered dishes, like, with those silver domes over them, like you might see at a real nice hotel for room service. And I was watching this woman, and she was walking past me. And then I closed my eyes back in a drowsy fashion. I was just like, oh, someone's coming in the room, whatever, going back to sleep. So I heard her behind me pouring coffee and preparing some things, tussling around with silverware and stuff. And then I opened my eyes again, and there was this man. He was kind of tall with dark hair, and I didn't recognize him at all. He just was like bustling into the room. He was wearing a suit and tie, and he was in a hurry of some sort. So I closed my eyes again drowsily. Now at this point in the dream, I was just given instant knowledge of who I was in this dream and where I was. So at this point in the dream, I knew I was an American girl, that I was between the ages of 19 and 20. I was very thin and tall. I had long dark hair parted in the center. Had bright blue eyes. I was very pretty. I knew that I was wearing something lacy and sexy in bed, but I only had one arm out of the covers. Nothing was exposed. I also know that I had been kidnapped in America and sent to Russia to be a mistress of sorts to Mr. Putin. And I knew that someone very important in the New World Order that was from America had made some sort of trade. So an American girl for something that Putin was going to do for the whole global New World Order effort, okay? I didn't know who it was, and I didn't know what the trade was. I just knew that happened, okay? So when I arrived, of course, I was quite fearful. I was a Christian, and I was relying on God to keep me safe. But when Vladimir Putin and I were alone for the first time, he said in English to me, he had no interest in me, and that I was only for show. I was supposed to convince everyone, especially his staff, that we were sleeping together and that we were like, an item. But I was not needing to perform any, acts of anything. I was just for looks. So he told me that if I could play this off and make everyone think we were together, and did everything going along peacefully and didn't try to run away or get away or whatever, then he would not let anyone harm me, and he would not let anyone harm my family. So in this situation, then I kind of relaxed, like, okay, this is the game I have to play. I don't know how or why God has me here, but this is what I'm doing, okay? So he also told me that the reason I was brought in from America is because I knew no English and I would not be a security threat. So if they got someone from somewhere else, I might be a security threat. Okay, so I was very puzzled as this 19, 20-year-old by Putin, because I knew that he was publicly claiming to be a Christian, and I could wonder how he was doing some of the horrible things he was doing. I also was there he was protecting me. He was keeping me safe. So I thought that was kind of a dichotomy. I couldn't figure out, as this teenage kind of person, is he good or is he bad? I couldn't decipher it. So here he was protecting me, but then he was also telling me to lie, which, that wouldn't be a Christian trait. So I was very perplexed on how to categorize him, like Christian, not a Christian. Like, I didn't know what to do with him. So I was laying there in this bed, like it was a giant king size bed. And I knew without even opening my eyes, because I had obviously been in this place before, this dream or whatever. So I knew that there was a fireplace. Like if you were sitting up in the bed, the fireplace would be to the left. And then to the left of that was like a table and chairs. And that's where the maid was preparing breakfast. And so I knew that this was one of Putin's residences, and I knew this was his personal bedroom. So anyway, here I am in this room, and this man that had hustled in, he was standing by the fireplace, and I was like facing my back to him, but I could hear him talking, and by the grace of God, I could hear everything he was saying in English, even though he wasn't speaking a stitch of English. So I was quite interested in this conversation. So I rolled over, and as if on cue, I just kind of cuddled up next to Vladimir's arm, and I was just leaning into him like, we were cuddle buddies, kind of weird, I know. So anyway, he was propped up on some pillows sitting up in bed. He was shirtless. He was covered with sheets and stuff. His demeanor was very strong, but he was very peaceful and authoritative. The maid was on the other side of Putin, and she was making breakfast, and the breakfast she was making was toast, eggs, and fruit, and hot black coffee. She was also preparing me a plate of food, as if she knew what I could eat and what I liked. The man who was speaking in Russian was some sort of military advisor or high-level staff member. I could tell by the conversation he was having, but I did not know him or know what he was, I didn't know his title or what his name was or anything. He asked Putin, can I speak in front of her in Russian? And Putin replied, yes, she's an American. She doesn't speak any Russian. So the man was talking about plans for invading the U.S., and I don't remember most of the tactical things or the timing or any of that, although I did hear all that in the dream. But then the man said something that absolutely, put shivers down my spine. And he said, now we will gather up the Christians right away, right? And I was like, what? And then I was like, okay, keep your poker face on. Keep your poker face on. So I was really calm, tried not to let on that I was understanding what he was saying. So then Putin said, no, not at first. And then I had a supernatural knowing in this dream what Putin was thinking. And so he was thinking the real Christians will disappear first, then we will gather them. But he didn't say that aloud. So then his advisor was very impatient, and he was disagreeing with Putin because he wanted to do this instantly. And so he was giving his, arguments, I guess, why we needed to do this right away. So Putin firmly said, no. And I know what I'm doing. So the advisor got very fearful, and then he retracted as if there would be consequences for him if he would further try to press Putin into what the New World Order's goal was. So then the dream ended, right? So I have a super good visual memory, okay? I'm like an artist, and I do a lot of, I just can really, really remember visual things. My brain's very right-brained. Obviously you could probably tell with my videos, I like to add a lot of color and, pictures and everything. So, anyway, as soon as I woke up from this dream, I was like, I got to figure out who this guy is. And so I just started swiping through and trying to find as many pictures as I can of anybody in Russia. Who would this even be? I don't know. I don't pay attention to the news. I'm not hyper dialed in to international stuff. So, my visual skills are kind of when they have the different Bidens show up for different things, I can't unsee that. I'm like, okay, Biden number 2, you know, it drives me crazy because there's different body doubles and stuff that they use for him, but they don't look the same in the face. One has a funky chin and one has a funky nose, and they have different proportions in their face. And if you were to paint them and put them on a grid, you'd be like, wow, y'all are not even the same people. So it's really obvious to me, right? So I'm like looking through all these different people, and I'm like, nope, 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 not the right guy, not the right guy. So for a week, I'm looking through all these pictures of different Russians, of different Russian like meetings and public, you know, events, and I can't find this guy. And then one day I found him, and I was like, that's the guy. I don't know, you know, I don't know his name. I don't know who he is. There's nothing. He was just in the background, and I knew that was the guy from my dream. So I asked around, you know, different people, hey, you know who this is? Nobody knows who it is. I'm like, okay. I mean, we're American. We're not like dialed into whatever's going on in Europe anyway, but you know. So 2 weeks later, I was talking to my brother. He transitioned in different career, and he is now a history teacher, civics teacher, government, you know, like he does all that. So we were talking about actually how his wife's dream lined up with my dreams. And we were talking about, you know, some of the timing of different things that may be happening, you know, coming up in the future. And so I was telling him that I just had this, you know, really interesting dream, but I can't figure out who this guy is in this dream. And so he goes, oh, forward me the picture. Maybe I can, you know, help you out. So I forwarded him the picture of this guy who has, you know, no name. And like an hour later, he gets back to me, and he knows exactly who it is. And at first, before he even looked it up, he showed the picture to his wife. And he told her the basics of the dream. And then she said to him, you have to find this guy. This is a very significant dream for the Lord to have put this real person in her dream. So you've got to find this. So he did. He found him, and his name is Dmitry Medvedev. He was the former president and the former prime minister of Russia. See how out of it I am? And now he's the deputy chairman of the Security Council of Russia, and he does most of the public speaking for like this whole war event. So he's like the voice of Putin, okay? So as for Dmitry Medvedev, he's a major player in what's going on in the world. On May 24th, in fact, he rejected Italy's peace plan, and he said this was the excuse to start a full-scale war. So we're talking serious major player on the international stage. I'm dreaming about, I have no clue. Okay, so that's God. That's 100% God. I've read up a little bit on him, and he often disagrees with Putin and how to handle things. They have a totally different approach. But he is for now Putin's voice in the public, okay? He also publicly points out that the EU and that President Biden are trying to pressure Putin into using nukes. Dmitry is not for NATO expanding. He feels that this would destabilize the world further, and he has constantly warned the EU and NATO of their actions. Like, don't do this. You're going to cause something bad. So I looked into his life a little bit to see who this guy is, because he was so significant in this dream. So he was an only child of a family that was in the intelligence community, but I noticed that he liked American bands, and so this drew my attention to the condition of his heart. Okay, so he really likes Black Sabbath and Led Zeppelin. So I don't think he's a Christian in any way, shape, or form. He took the presidential oath the same year as Obama, and at that time he started what was called ruling in tandem in Russia, kind of like a Batman and Robin thing with Putin, okay? Now, he's always had a good relationship with both Hillary Clinton and Obama, but he was not a fan of Trump. Now, I'm not a huge fan of any of them, but I'm just saying politically where he stands has got to be more on the New World Order and liberal side, not the conservative side, is, the point. He used to be seen as a friend to the West, but now he's being viewed as an aggressor and being stubborn because he's basically the voice of Putin, who is basically on the other side, right? Now, in order to stay in the inner circle of Putin, he had to do a big flip-flop on a lot of the things that he publicly said he used to believe, or he does believe. I don't know how that sits, because there's a lot of lying in politics, right? But so he says he's anti-Marxist. He has a PhD in law. But I think, in my soul, I think that he has a big role in the New World Order. He only makes like $80,000 a year, but he lives like a very, very wealthy person and has a lot of posh lifestyle. So where's that coming from? I don't know. I'm just asking for a friend. Anyway, so my gut thinks that he's probably a tool of the elite, and probably he has been promised money and protections in order to provide, you know, certain things and make things happen for the New World Order. But that's just my gut feeling. Now, before this dream, of course, I had no idea who this guy was. And, you know, before 2020, I never even paid attention to the news because, well, I didn't have time. So, like, the fact that this, like, former Russian president, former Russian prime minister would be in my dream is just insane to me. Okay. So now, obviously, this dream points out that during the phase of Russia and probably China, but Russia, when they invade, they will probably have an intent to round up Christians. Okay. Now, also, we know that that's got to be before the Antichrist is officially launched. So that makes sense with what Putin was thinking in my dream. Now, I feel like this goes with my 467 dream, which I posted the other day, because I have heard several dreamers call Putin the destroyer. And I know that in their dreams or in their messages that God uses the destroyer to bring about his plans, okay? So Jeremiah 4:7, that was the verse I used in the 467 dream, I think applies here too. And it says, the lion has come up from his thicket, and the destroyer of nations, which I think is Vladimir, is on his way. He has gone forth from his place to make the land desolate. Your cities will be laid to waste without inhabitant. So I just thought this was an important warning, you know. Now, there's another thing that the Lord has laid on my heart in context of this dream. Now, I'm slightly reluctant, but obedient, and I know that God will protect me just because I have been through too much. And I know that God's always got my back. But I have to share something that is, you know, at some personal risk to myself and to my family. But I think it's important. The Lord's laid it on my heart that someone is going to need to hear this, that hears this video either prior to us leaving or for the people that are left behind that need to understand how faith works. Okay? So, unfortunately, and by the grace of God, our family endured an attempted kidnapping of one of our 4 girls when we lived in Alabama. Now, we were in the process of moving. You know, everyone that watches my videos knows we move a lot. And my husband had already moved to the next state and was in a different job. And we were selling the house, you know, me and the girls. So we were in the process of leaving. My daughter went out for a run and she noticed someone was like following her very closely. So she hid in some bushes at the neighbors, went a back way through. We had like a community forest that was like in between all of us, and this person followed her, you know, quite a bit. So she came in the back door of our place and came up. And there's a lot more to the story, okay? I'm not going to get into the yuck side and the trauma that it was to live through. What I'm going to share is the grace, the provisions, and the protections that God gave us through the situation, okay? So I'm going to celebrate how the Lord delivered us, because when you are God's child, He will protect you. You just need to call out, okay? So when we first called the police, we fortunately got an honest policeman, okay? And he came, interviewed, talked about the situation, and then he said, do you know how to defend yourselves? And I was like, that's probably not the best thing to hear in this situation. So, you know, we talked about that. And then he said, I'll deny this in court if you take it, take me to court. But there are some people in our police department that are not honest, and no one will help you in this situation. Excuse me? So he said, people will come again and they will try to find her, and no one will help you. You will be on your own. And I was like, wait, this blows my entire understanding of the police, because, my whole life was like, oh, teachers and policemen and doctors, they're all good people. No. So, now we know better because, we live in 2022, but whatever. So at this point, I was like, what the hey, right? So, that night, that's exactly what happened. So a van came, they cut our communication lines, they cut our internet, whatever. So here's what happened. Miracle after miracle is what happened. So, with much discernment and prayer and wisdom, God was one step ahead of those that are against us the whole night. And I'm literally a living testimony of how God protects his own people, okay? My husband, gone, so we had no men around. That city, well, not many friends, because if you live in the Deep South and you're not from the Deep South, it's like being, it's a completely bigoted situation. So you're not going to have any support or friends, okay? So, let's see. So we heard people in our house down the basement banging around. They weren't very subtle. And let me just tell you some of the provisions that God did for us. We had our phone lines and our internet lines cut, and by some miracle, we were allowed to call out. Beat that. Okay. We also had a man who was coming up our stairs. We heard him. He was at the door. He was trying to turn the door. I was 12 inches from this door, and I was praying. I'm like, Holy Spirit, you have got to keep us protected, because no one is coming. And because we had called the police, and they're like, well, we'll get there when we can, whatever. So they weren't even kind of close. They weren't even in a hurry to come. And, the first policeman was honest and right. But what happened is that man tried to turn the door, and he tried to open that door. Nothing happened. He could not get through that door. The Holy Spirit literally blocked this man from being in our presence. Okay. Then we had, finally the police show up, and they were dirty cops. And they were basically alerting the bad guys when they walked around the outside of the house, like hollering out, is anyone there? Just making like the biggest, it was insane. So, then they wouldn't come in the house. I'm like, no, you don't need to walk outside the house. They're in our basement. They wouldn't come in the house. Oh, we're not allowed to come in your house. You're the police. You're not allowed to come in the house to get a bad guy? What are you talking about? So we knew the rest of the night we were on our own. These people were in our house. We were up all night. It was not fun. But here's the thing. We finally have to leave because one of my daughters has to go to work. And so we decide, we got to bail out of here. We got to, safely get out of the house. So literally, I had to walk downstairs, and I knew those guys were down there. I had to walk downstairs. I'm like, Holy Spirit, you got to keep me safe all the way to the car, all the way out, pick up the girls, because I was going to pick them up on the other side of the house. The older sisters were keeping the younger sisters safe. It was kind of a whole thing. So in faith, I walk down there, leave, get in the car, drive around, pick them up, do the whole thing. We were completely safe. We take our one daughter to work. Okay, so that following day, so this is in the morning and everything, I finally get the ability to call my husband, tell him what's going on, and all that. So he hooks up he gets me a hotel. He's like, go to a hotel, we'll figure it out on the fly, but don't go back. So then I realized that they were following us. They followed us to my daughter's work. They followed us to the hotel. Like, it wasn't good. They followed us to pick up some dinner. You know, like, it was not good. So they even followed us to the fire department, which is where we went because I knew the police weren't going to help us. So I went to the fire department thinking, well, maybe they can help us. And they were shocked out of their minds. They were like, what's going on? What are you talking about? They call the police. The policeman comes in. They watched exactly what I saw. So the policeman comes, he starts taking down all the information. As soon as that policeman heard that there was a girl, a 16-year-old girl, that was an attempted kidnapping, he put his pen down, stopped writing, and was like, oh, that was it. There was no help to be had. And so he's like, I'm sure it'll be fine, ma'am. And he left, and the firemen were like, what just happened here? Like, they were freaking out. They're like, you've got to get safe. And I'm like, yeah, my husband got me a hotel, you know, whatever. So we go to the hotel. I haven't slept in like literally like 2 days. Go to the hotel and have that, like, you know, that bar latch thing hooked. And I knew they followed us to the hotel. So I'm freaking out because I'm like, I gotta get some sleep, but whatever. So they come to the hotel and I hear some people outside of the door, men, you know, talking or whatever. Like, it's an echo chamber. It's a hotel, people, whatever. So I hear them out there, and then I hear a key card go to open our door. Like, they had the keys from someone in the hotel. So someone in the hotel's on their side. So they have the key to open our door, and it opens only enough to, you know, for that little metal latch, the metal lock, the extra lock. And by this time, I'm ticked off. So I'm going to go after these guys. I'm just like at that point. So it opens the door and makes the huge sound, and they realize they're not going to be able to get in. And so I slam the door, you know, to make them realize I'm right there. And then I literally open the door, and all I hear is footsteps. They're running down the hall. And I'm like, Lord, seriously, got to get some sleep. You've got to keep us safe. So the whole rest of the night, total peace and quiet, nothing. We went to pick up like toothbrushes and, you know, some snacks or whatever, because the kids are just dying. They're like, we need food, you know, whatever. So we go into a Walmart, and there's a triangulation of men, like around Walmart, all talking to each other, following us. Like, this kid's about to be snatched right in front of my eyes. And I'm like, okay, Lord, seriously, you got to protect us through this. We get out of that store. We didn't buy anything. We get out of that store. We get in the car. We go over to my daughter's work. And I say, we gotta go. We have to leave. My husband had gotten us a safe house, like in another state, in a tranquil place with no internet and all that. Every time we turned off our phones, we realized they couldn't follow us. So we had to turn off all of our phones. You know, they were tracking us through our phones. So I basically, the one daughter had to quit her job like instantly, which was, you know, had consequences. And we picked up and left. We ran by our house, picked up a bunch of things we needed, and we bailed out. These people followed us an hour outside of town before they finally gave up and turned around. And they had 3 vehicles that they were chasing us with. And I was just like, Lord have mercy, right? And I guess in some ways it's sort of like David being chased. But the whole entire time, even though it was stressful, God had our backs and we were completely safe. We get to the safe house, we trade out our phones, we get everything changed. Everything is different. Like, we're just like, okay, this is a whole new thing. I got off all social media. I didn't know how they were tracking us or whatever, but I was just like, fresh start. We're not doing this. But we still had to go back and sell the house. So they had smashed windows and there were, you know, dirty handprints all over the place. We had to go and like fix it up and, you know, do some stuff. So it was probably a month later. We went with my husband and he came back and he helped, you know, he was like helping manage everything. We're there one night. Now, mind you, we have all different phones, everything. We're there one night and everything's fine. The second night, they break in again. Now, we had taken steps to be safe, you know, in the situation. But I could not believe the tenacity of these people. So we finally sell the house. We, buy a new place. In the new place, by God's grace, next door neighbor is a policewoman, and she is in charge of the entire state's trafficking division. So, we've lived there maybe 6 months or something, and we're talking about whatever, and it comes up, this whole entire story. And I was telling her of God's grace, and I was telling her of the situation, and she said, did you happen to take any pictures? And I'm like, well, yeah, these people are chasing us. We took tons of pictures. And so I handed over all the stuff I had, all the information I had, all the things I knew, and I knew some of them weren't speaking English. They were speaking like Russian. So she gave that to her counterpart in the state we had come out of. And it was about a year and a half later, maybe 2 years later, I happened to see in the news, and I tried to look it up to share with you guys, but it's been wiped off the internet, of course. But I happened to see that the FBI had come down on that city. They had arrested a bunch of the cops. They had taken down some of the in the area, that there was a trafficking house that was right next to where my daughter used to work. She worked at the zoo, and so they had probably seen her there, tracked her home, the whole thing. And she had the look that they wanted at that time. And they had lots of different hotels that were in on it. They had taken all down these hotels, and where we lived at the time, there was a highway. There was like a triangulation of highways where they would transfer the girls from place to place. They would kidnap them, transfer them, and make them into, sex slaves. And when I learned from my neighbor what was going on, and then I saw in the news what happened as the end of this, I was like, wow, God really saved us. It wasn't just like one miracle after another. It was like a bubble of protection where, yes, the world around us may be scary and terrible, and they may be after you. But God, right? He's the one who's like, you're not touching that one. Not going to happen. And I just have so much compassion for the people that do go through that. It's very stressful. And anyway, so I wanted to share that story because if in fact you have some very stressful situation that the world is trying to go against you, tap into God's power because He will keep you. Okay, so then when I had this dream, it just brought all that back to me. And I was like, wow, okay, that could have been us. That could have been her, And so I know that in this world we live in now, this kind of thing happens all the time. And I know that in my dream, I have mercy and pray that it was just a dream and that it's not a real person. But let's just say that your child is in a situation, you're a Christian, and they weren't spared. Perhaps it's a situation like this where they're being spared, you just don't know, okay? So, keep your head on a swivel. Pray up your armor constantly because literally the distance between safety and harm is that thin veil of the Holy Spirit for us. And anything could happen to anybody. But if you keep praying your armor around you, you'll be protected and safe because God keeps His own. Okay? Now here's the verse that I have for that, piece of the element of the story. Proverbs 29:25. The fear of man brings a snare, but whoever trusts in the Lord shall be safe. So no matter what's ahead of you, have faith. Be vigilant, but have faith. Because don't be fearful. Fear only feeds the demonic side. Have faith and be like, God's got me. I'm in the happy bubble. Everything's cool. We're going to be okay. And really believe it. Okay? Really believe it. God's got your back. He's the God of the universe. If you're in his family, you think he's going to let some crazy person take you? Not going to happen. So as we look at these things where war's coming and things are happening, have faith. God's got your back, okay? You're in the happy bubble. Get in the happy bubble. Stay in the happy bubble. Stay suited up in your armor. You got this, okay? Hang in there. Hope it's encouraging. And I hope you have a great day.